then came the whole issue of saying that now we need to go out there and start to build a brand. Of course, the interesting thing was that even though our bank by then was there, the bank was set up in 1994, so it had been 3 or 4 years since the bank was there, but the bank was predominantly again a SME and a corporate type bank. It was not doing retail business very much. And at about this time, the various subsidiaries, retail subsidiaries, had started to get created for those specialized businesses, like Home Finance was ICICI Home Finance was created, ICICI Personal Financial Services was created, ICICI Capital Services was created. So all of these retail businesses started to take shape by way of by way of these subsidiaries. And then we said, okay, now we need to go out and communicate. Now we were in a little bit of a dilemma, that when you go out and talk about this new brand, what is the product we're going to talk about? Okay? Because the parent ICICI, the only retail product it had at the time was bonds. Okay? And again, the bonds had been launched under a different looking brand which used to be an umbrella. Okay? So we first of all had to take a decision, and even that was very popular. So we had to take a decision that we have to drop the umbrella. Which indeed now, as I look at it in hindsight, we were so clinical about it and said, yeah, we now have a new brand identity. So, there's no place for this umbrella, we better get rid of it. But I think we still continued for a year or so because, but everybody recognizes it and all that. But I think after about a year, we dropped the umbrella and made this the dominant. So a parallel run for a little while, maybe a year, and then we dropped the umbrella and this came. But we had only the bonds, and those also were not continuously in the market. They would come only at the time of the bond issue. And the other products and services were really very, very nascent, just starting. So the first ad, actually, the Vidhu Vinod Chopra ad, you've seen that, Shada? Okay. You would notice in that ad there are no products. Okay. So the question really is, what were we trying to do there?
Just briefly describe to me what was in that ad so that it's, there for the record.
The ad was essentially showing how there are a series of people going from 1 to 5 to 20 to 500 to 50,000, so that was the visual imagery, who are very happy for some reason. Okay, what that reason is was unknown until a fairly late part of the film, where really the thought was that, ICICI Bank in financial services will make a difference to your life. That's all it said, because there were no products. We didn't have any products. Okay. So the idea really was that a brand which is not recognized, the name itself is not recognized at all, needs to start coming into the consciousness of people just as a name recognition. We'll worry about it later as to what they associate with that time, but with that brand. But at least to begin with, people are aware that there's something called ICICI and that it's in the financial services space. That's all that we wanted to achieve with the first piece of communication.
That was shot at the Flora.
At Flora.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And in fact, all our employees, I can still recollect, it was a hot day. In the middle of May, you can imagine, and sweltering heat, and people were there, I don't know how many, 500, 600, at that time, maybe more, in fact, maybe 1,000 or so.
This was on a Sunday?
Sunday. They came to, be just the extras in the film, just to be part of the film and, the ICICI Bank film. Of course, we didn't know what we were in for. It was, takes and retakes and retakes, and the whole day went, and it was sweltering heat. Anyway, so the point is that, the purpose of the film was simply to establish in people's mind that there is something called ICICI and it operates in the financial services space. That was the limited objective. Of course, at that time, what was new about this whole approach was that banks and financial services never advertised. So we had a huge advantage, in fact, because of being the first mover. It was new, it was refreshing. Our share of voice was close to 100%, even with a very small budget. We had 100% share of voice, and it therefore created quite a good impact. Of course,
Also, it set a precedent for other banks to follow.
over time, yes,
Over
a lot
time,
of people then felt that, if you're going to be in the retail business, you do need to create awareness of the brand and so on. So, we did that, but what was also interesting was, so two, outcomes of that film that happened in every, I would say, stage of our communication and marketing and brand building effort is chronicled in our market research, because we started market research, you may have spoken with Dora, in 97. We have never stopped. Every month after month, starting from 97 to date, you ask us for data, we have it. Because we believe so strongly that, when you're creating a brand, you better know in what direction you're heading. Dorab often calls research as the radar of your aeroplane, So you need to know where you're heading. So certainly that, campaign that we ran helped us in terms of our, brand salience, moving the brand up in terms of just recognition and top of mind, recall. It just helped us very significantly. And, now, so many years later, it looks strange. At that time, the hierarchy of financial brands was that SBI and LIC were right on top, then UTI, then IDBI, and ICICI was way below. So, we were way below IDBI. So, our first marketing objective brand building objective that we set for ourselves was we want to catch up with IDBI. That was our big objective. Okay, and of course, each of these things was a step in that direction, and indeed, I think maybe it took us about 2.5 years or so, and we crossed IDBI. We then said, now we've got to cross UTI, and that was really tough. And as things happened, at precisely that time, actually, UTI helped us a little bit because they faced their problems. So their brand equity fell, and ours rose, and at one point we crossed over.
Okay.
So, so it reached there. And then we used to look at LIC and SBI, and we used to say, oh my God, that's so terribly far away. And we said, that's where we want to get to. And today, of course, as we speak, ICICI Bank and SBI are neck to neck. On any given month, any given month, they are number one, we are number two, or we are number one, they are number two. It just sort of is that much. And we are very happy to stay there. So, that's
and
the journey.
LIC is much lower.
LIC. So that was the journey, as I said, that we used to set ourselves the milestones. And, for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years now, we have said that so long as we are plus minus 10% of the leader, which of course is SBI, we are very happy. Because we know we can, do more. And you can throw money at competing with SBI's 100-year-old, legacy. But we don't need to. We have enough, and there's no need to be greedy about it. So we're happy to be there. As I said, we're in the top 2 brands in the country. We're very happy. Now the question is, as I said, so the objective that we set ourselves with that film, it used to be called the Chinchak film.
Yes.
The reason it was called Chinchak was that, when we were discussing this, we were formulating this with the agency, and we discussed it with Vidhu Vinod Chopra and all of that. So at one stage we said, we need to get director's approval for all of this. And Vidhu Vinod Chopra came and met with all our directors, and we were sitting at lunch. And I remember Vidhu Vinod Chopra describing the film, no presentation or anything, describing the film to the directors. And he said, so the whole feel of the film would be very upbeat and very, alive, and, the music will just lift the whole thing, and it'll go chin chak cha chin chak cha chin chak cha chin. And he described it like that, and,
So the tune did come from him?
It did come.
Because somebody said the other day, no, it was Shankar Mahadevan's tune.
No, Shankar Mahadevan later rendered it.
Okay.
Later rendered it.
Okay.
So now, before meeting us...
You mean this came just spontaneously as he was talking to you?
Certainly to us it looked like that.
Yeah.
As I said, I've never asked myself that had he, actually got this tune made by Shankar Mahadev, when he could have.
Yeah.
And then he came in here and presented it. No, I don't think so. I think it was later rendered by Shankar Mahadevan in all the Bachchan films that we made.
Yeah.
The music was rendered, every version, because this tune then became our tune. And then when it was rendered in different ways, Shankar Mahadevan did a lot of that work for us.
Okay, now when Vinod Chopra suddenly went
We should
into
check
this Jinchak
I will
business,
go back and check.
what was the reaction of all of you sitting around that table?
I think the reaction was,
Who all were there?
you know, Mr. Kamath, Mrs. Gupte, Kalpana.
Oh, so you were all there?
Yeah.
And the reaction?
And the reaction, I think, was twofold. One was, I think, oh my gosh, this is going to be very different. You know, it's really going to be quite different from what you see, you know, around you. And that perhaps is what we need. We want something which will stand out, be different. And so, you know, it was almost an instantaneous support for it. Then, of course, we went into production and so on. As I said, you know, so many people joined in to really participate in the whole thing. The whole film came out and it was very well received.
That's what your market research told you?
Yes.
That it was well received?
Oh yes, the brand salience got a real kicker at that time in terms of moving up. So that was what I would call the first phase of just introducing and unveiling the brand to the public and simply positioning it saying financial services, ICICI Bank. That's all. ICICI. That was all. We then ran that, you know, for a period. It did us a lot of good.